Hi, I'm Glyn Dewis and I want to let you know about my brand new book, Photograph Like a Thief. Now, I truly believe that your own unique style starts with copying because you have to have a starting point. But when I say copying, I mean looking at the work of other great photographers, their lighting, composition, posing, how they retouch their images, learning from it and going on to create something completely new. Now, I've packed a lot into this book. There's a whole chapter dedicated to reverse engineering, equipment, my favourite retouching techniques, and 10 chapters taking you from coming up with an idea, the lighting, the setup, the photo shoot, and the complete retouching steps from start to finish. So check out Photograph Like a Thief, available now where all good books are sold. Okay, so we are live. Hopefully the audio is coming through. I can see a little bar moving up and down, so hopefully that means you can hear me. Hi to everybody that's joined me so far. I've seen a few of you in the chat room. We've got Chris, Fran, my mate Brian, Chris Ellison, Will. Hey, good to see you, buddy. Listen, guys, thanks very much for joining me yet again. This is the third YouTube live. It's great been getting all the feedback since I started these. It seems to be something really different. Definitely a different reaction to people that I'm getting, or from people rather, that I'm getting, as opposed to just uploading, you know, the regular videos to the YouTube channel. I'm still going to be doing those. I've recorded another one today. That'll be posted later this week. But there's definitely a different kind of reaction to these YouTube lives. So again, thanks so much for taking time out of your evening to join me. Hopefully the audio sounds a bit better than last week. Those of you who were here last time, you can just about see it in the bottom corner here. Got a new microphone. My friend Anthony's a bit of a guru with sound, and he said it needed a bit more in the mid-range. So I'm hoping this is better. I just want to make it as good as I can for you folks, because you're taking the time out of your evening. I want to try and make it as good as possible. Got lots to cover for you tonight. We've got quite about 5 different things. I'm trying to squeeze as much as I can into roughly half an hour. So I'm hoping you can stick with me. While you're here, if you want to kind of like just tweet or post on Facebook or Instagram that we're up and running live now, there will be a lot to cover. But before we dive into the techniques, I'm just going to pre-prepare. I've got this little thing here. We got a winner from last week. You remember the first week we had a guy called Whack in Parchment. He won the copy of the book. That's been sent over to him in the States. And the winner from last week is Nancy Henson Cuppy. What a cool name. Nancy's going to get a copy of this book, this nice big heavy book, nice and 408 pages. So I'm going to send that to Nancy. I get the feeling she's over in America. So I'll be, oops, that was my foot. So I'll be sending that to her. But on the subject of the book, it's been great also getting some of the feedback on Amazon. So if you've got a copy, do us a favour and head over there if you like it and just leave a couple of lines. I'd really, really appreciate it. And I know that publishers would as well. But while you're here, is to have a look, or whilst you're here, is to have a look at some techniques. Let's dive in. I've got a couple of very quick ones for Lightroom, one to do with the Creative Cloud, and then I've got one from my friend Dave Clayton. And then we're going to finish off right at the end, one to do with the healing brush. And I think you're going to really like this one. It's a new technique I found out after doing the seminar in Petersfield the other day. So let me just dive over to the desktop, which is this one here. Just make sure you can still hear me. Yes, you can. Cool. Who's that one there? Steve Healy. Good to see you, mate. Don't tell us you're in Devon. Whatever you do not mention you're in Devon. All right. Okay. So the first one I want to show you. This was a request from a friend of mine, Anthony Crothers. He's great guy, really good friend of mine. This is the guy who's been helping me out a lot with this Home Guard project and the World War II stuff. And the question I had from Anthony was all to do with when you're exporting from Lightroom, is there a way of getting your image when you export it to be a specific size? Now let me just show you where that is. This is for Anthony and anybody else who doesn't really know that. We're going to start off a real quick one here. Now I've got this picture of my mate Ian Munro. So if I wanted to export this, I don't know, let's say to send it to a printers and they needed it to be a certain size, as an example, we go to the File menu and we choose Export. This is what you'd always expect to see. You've got the presets that are built in. You've also got some that you can set up for yourself. I highly recommend you do that. But when you scroll down, the area, this is for Anthony, the area that you want to be interested in is where it says File Settings. Now this is where you can choose what file format you want it to be in. You can also choose the color space that they need it to be in. You might find that some printers need it in specific color spaces. And then you've got quality, but here you've got one little checkbox called Limit File Size to, and at the moment it says 100K. Now if you wanted to say send this and they said it cannot be any bigger than 2 megabytes, then all you simply do is just type in 2000, not 20,000, 2000K and then export it. So it'll limit the size of that file no matter how big it is. It'll make it no bigger than 2 megabytes. So I hope that's useful there for you, Anthony. It's just a real quick one I thought I'd throw in for you just there. Now the next one I want to show you, I kind of tried to show this when I was at Petersfield the other day, but wasn't too prepared. I was kind of thinking off the top of my head how we're going to do this. Now this is all to do with how to get perfect colour in your pictures, or as near as damn it. Now I know that with my pictures I do tend to go through, you know, the retouching phase where I talk about adding colour and using lookup tables and all that kind of stuff, but I still believe that it's, you know, you've got to have the best possible starting point, especially if you've got a series of images that you need to have the same look to throughout that series. So if those pictures all start off with the same kind of color and then you add the same effects to them later on, you're going to get consistency. So the way you do that is with this little thing here. If I just show you, this is called an X-Rite color checker passport. That's what you can see just there, all these different colors on it, and then like a magic trick you can flip the other side and then you've got a grey card. Whoops, sorry. Now with this thing here, what you can do, here's my mate Brian. Now this isn't how Brian normally looks. Brian's pulling a face. So I assure you, this is just Brian pulling a face when I wasn't looking. But I've taken a quick picture of Brian holding the color checker passport. You don't need to zoom in really, really tight on it. But then what you can do is, if you're using Lightroom, there is a plugin that you can get from X-Rite, which will then make use of this color checker passport. Now, if you want the link to that software, that plugin, check out the description part of this video. I've put a direct link into there, and it works an absolute treat, he says. Now, when you've got the picture set on the screen like this, this is what you're going to do to make use of these colors, because that color checker passport there, they have got calibrated colors. So what Lightroom will do is it'll analyze that color checker passport and say, right, we know what the blue should look like, but what does it look like? And it'll make slight adjustments to it, and it'll create a profile that then you can then apply to your pictures so that you know the colors are absolutely perfect. Obviously you need to have your monitors calibrated as well, that's kind of a given, but this is another way of making sure that what you see is what you get. So when you've got the picture on screen that you've taken there with the color checker passport in view, all you're going to do is go File and then go Export with Preset. And when you've got that plugin installed, you'll see it here say color checker passport. Now I'm just going to click on that, and we're going to get this little dialog box comes up, and I'm going to call this one Brian. There we go. And then click Save. Now I don't know if you can see it, but in the top left hand corner of the screen, when you do that, Lightroom is now analysing that picture. It's looking for that color checker passport. It knows the measurements of it, all the little markings, and it's going to actually analyse it to create a profile. We should any moment now get a little pop-up. There you go. It's now saying it's actually successfully generated a profile. So when you get to this stage, you just click OK. Now to get the profile into Lightroom, all you simply do then is close Lightroom down, and then you open Lightroom back up. So let's just click on Lightroom. Let's just bring it back up. He says, there we go. So Lightroom is going to be opening back up. And now when I go over to the Develop module, and we go down to camera calibration, hoping again you can see this on the right hand side. When you click on the profile, at the moment you'll notice it says Adobe Standard. Now we've got one here called Brian. Now let me just zoom in so you can really see this work. So now look, keep an eye on the colors, and hopefully you're going to see this on your screen. But now when I go from Adobe Standard to Brian, you should see the colors really pop. So here we go, click, bang. Did you see the blues, especially down the bottom here? Let's just go back to what it was, Adobe Standard. Now let's go to Brian. Keep an eye on the blues. They're the ones that really do seem to jump out. We go Brian, bang, and there we go. So now then what I'm going to do is then just click on the white balance. We've got a number of greys in here. I'm going to go for this middle one here. Click on that. So now what I've actually done is I've actually calibrated, I've actually set the colors in this picture here to be perfect. So now what I can do, I can either hold down my shift key, click on a few of these and then sync them. Or in the best way to do this is actually come over to the develop module on the left hand side where you've got presets. If you click the plus, you can call this a certain kind of preset. We've got all these options checked and we'll click create. So now on the left hand side in the user presets we've got Brian. I could then simply highlight all of these images here, all those on the top row there, and just apply that Brian preset to actually then calibrate all the pictures so that they're nice and perfect colours throughout them. Another way that you can use this is if you're tethering, which I highly recommend you do. When you are tethering, if you go to the file and tethered capture and you're starting off the tethering, let's just say we've set all, put the details in there. When you click OK, you get the bar here and that comes across. And if you've got a camera connected, you'd see all the details of what the camera was and also the settings that are in the camera. But over on the right hand side where it says develop settings, on it says none, come down here to user presets, you can actually click on the preset you've already created so that every time you take a picture, as it comes down the wire from the camera into the computer, Lightroom applies that camera profile and the white balance so the pictures look perfect as they come through. That is especially good if you're actually doing this to get paid and you've got some client over your shoulder. If they see them coming in looking great from the get-go, the confidence in you is going to go absolutely through the roof. So I hope that's useful. Hope it makes sense. I may do a shorter kind of video, or maybe a sort of a slower video rather, to show you how we can go through that, but incredibly useful. Like I said, the actual link to download that is in the description part of this video. Right, let's have a quick look over here. I want to show you this little video now while I set something else up. And you're back in the room. Okay, another little thing I was asked recently was to do with the Creative Cloud libraries and how I use them. Let me just open up an image first of all so we can show you what we're talking about. Let's just go to my desktop. YouTube Live, tutorials, and there we go. Just open up this little texture here that I took with my phone today. Let's have a quick look over in the old... When I use the colour check, I use a trick Frank Dwarf told me, telling my models it's an old version and he or she has to make a funny... Johan, I might try that, although I didn't need to with Brian. Okay, so Vernon, why do both? You'll notice it when you try it. Basically, the actual the white balance and the actual colours, there is a slight difference. So you need to do the colour profile first and then do the white balance and then everything will be perfect. That's why you actually do get the grey card. I mean, I'm no colour expert, but I know that get the colours on one side and then you get the grey card there as well. But I've just always been told that's what you need to do, and I ain't going to argue with it. Right, anyway, right, Creative Cloud. You'll remember from other videos and maybe last time as well when I was going through the YouTube Live, I told you that I really like to use Creative Cloud libraries. It's just a great way for me to store files that I want to have regular access to. And you can see that I create folders of all kinds of different things that I can then use on any computer that I sign into my Creative Cloud on. So I can use it on my desktop, I can use it on my laptop, wherever I am. If I sign in, I can access these files. So the question I had was, how do you actually add items into your Creative Cloud library? Well, it is really, really simple. You can see here that I've got an object open on my desktop. So that's the first thing you got to do, have it open on your desktop. And then you can either create a new library. There's a sort of at the very, very bottom of the list of libraries I've created. You can actually create a brand new one of your own, or just click on one that you've already got. And then whatever item you have open on your desktop, when you drag that over, you'll see that the actual box there changes to a little big plus icon, and then you drop it, and then you'll notice that it then appears at the bottom. Now, the name that's given to the files as you drop them in is the name of the background layer as they come in as well. So you see this one here says background. The file that's just come in says background, but you can change that. So if you just double click on it, you can then type it in saying wall texture, something like that. Now, if you create a library that you want to then remove, because I've done that a few times when you sort of get loads and loads and loads of library lists coming down and down and down and down. If you actually want to get rid of a library, what you can do then is go to the menu in the top right hand corner here, and then it will say view on website. So if I click on that, it'll then take me down all the way through into my Creative Cloud library. And if I've got here's my textures, the actual library I was currently looking in. Let's just go left, go back one there. These are all the actual libraries that I've got that you would have just seen in that drop down menu. If, let's say, I wanted to get rid of one, I can just click on the down arrow, and here we have permanently delete. Or you've got rename, you can copy, you can do a number of different things, but permanently delete. So that's just something quick to show you about using Creative Cloud libraries. Obviously, if you've got any questions, drop them into the little comment section there, and I'll see what I can get around to answering them. Maybe at the end, or maybe as somebody else suggested, maybe organising one of these where it's just all about questions that are regularly asked. But right, give you a break from my voice. I'm now going to introduce you to somebody who's done a little video for us. This is my mate Dave. Now, those of you who don't know Dave, let me just kind of remind you who Dave is. So let's just come over to here, and I want to show you this. Now, Dave is my best mate. He's what I call my brother from another mother. And I've known Dave now for, I think it's just over 6 years. But this is Dave, not Dave as he is. Obviously, Dave's always been there to support me. And, you know, when I was trying out new things, he'd want to model for me. He was real massive help. But this is the most recent picture we did. But Dave kindly recorded a video for us the other week, on the weekend. Dave's a graphic designer, but he's got a little tip there. I didn't have a clue about this, and I think as a photographer, there's definitely scope to make use of this. But I'll play Dave's video now, and then I'll jump back and I'll have that healing brush tip for you as well. So let's dive over to Dave.
All right, thank you, Glyn. Hi, I'm Dave. I'm a part-time model, full-time graphic designer, and I was just going over Glyn's this evening, and we were talking about something in Photoshop, and I mentioned artboards. And Glyn said, what are artboards? So I thought I'd take this quick tip to show you quickly how I use artboards and what they are. Now, it's something that's new in Photoshop, only came out a couple of versions ago. And basically what it allows you to do is have multiple documents in one document. So usually you do File, New, and then if you wanted to create another one, you do File, New, and File, New, and you have 3 or 4 tabs open at the top. With artboards, you can have all of them open in one document, and I'll show you what I use it for. We'll just quickly jump into Photoshop, and what we're going to do is go File, New, and in our dialog box over on the right hand side where you get your dimensions that you need, there's this little tick box here called Artboards, and what you're going to do is tick that. Nothing else is going to change. We're going to make a print project. I'm just working on something that's A4. It's going to be maybe a poster or a magazine cover, and we just tick our artboards and click create. And what's going to happen is you'll see a document like you would in Photoshop as usual, a PSD. But you'll see here it says artboard, and the way to come to the artboard is you've got the move tool, but you've also got this artboard tool, and you need to make sure that's selected, which is this little square with a plus. And what we're going to do with artboards is we're going to create a duplicate of what we're working on, but in the same file. And to do that, you get these little plus signs here. You just click on that, and you get a duplicate. Well, it's not a duplicate, it's another file. And you can click again, you can keep on clicking. But for this little tip here, I'm going to show you where we were discussing a poster for something. And I said, what I do is I create 3 versions of it so I can see all 3 at the same time. So what we're going to do is place an image, and we'll go up to File. I'm going to do Place Embedded because I don't need it linked. I want it actually to sit in the file. So we're going to pick this picture of Ian here, and we'll place this into Artboard 1. Now you need to make sure you're clicked on Artboard 1 to be able to place the image in, and we're just going to resize by holding Shift and Alt so we scale proportionally from the center. So here's a picture of Ian, and what I want to do is make 2 other copies of it. So I'm just going to hold the Alt key down, and I'm going to drag a copy over onto Artboard 2 and just plop it anywhere for now because we're just using this for comparison, and we'll do the same again for Artboard 3. So now we've got 1 Photoshop file, but we've got 3 versions of it, all with the same image. Now you can use the same image, and I'm going to show you it with different text, but you can also try it with 3 different images, so you can pick which one you want. Let's come over here to Artboard 1 again. So what we're going to do on Artboard 1 is we're going to add some type. So we come over to the type tool and just click on Artboard 1, make sure our color's white, and I'm just going to type geezer, because if you've ever met Ian, you'll know he's a proper out-and-out Cockney fella, and we're just going to scale that up by holding the Shift and using the transform, hit return. Now it looks okay. We've got this font here that I've used, but I want to try another couple of different size fonts, styles. So we're just going to hit the Alt key, and we're going to drag that text over onto Artboard 2, and we'll do it quickly again onto Artboard 3. So now we've got 3 of the same thing. And what I want to do is see what the font looks like with the image, see if it goes well with it. So we'll come over to Artboard 2 and select that. Come to the text tool and we'll just highlight that, and we'll come up here and we'll pick just any old text. We'll pick good old Impact. And the third one, we're just going to select a completely different font, and we'll do something a bit more, well, that's rubbish. Let's use something that's completely different. So now I've got my 3 versions on screen. I've decided which one I want. Let's say we're going to keep Artboard 2. What I can do is just get rid of the 2 artboards I don't want. And it's really simple. All you have to do is come over and click the artboard that you don't want, hit the delete key on your keyboard. So now we've got rid of artboard 1. Let's come over here and select artboard 3 and we'll hit delete, and we're going to keep artboard 2. Now I might think, oh, actually, do you know what? There was one more thing I wanted to try. So all you need to do is click on the little plus button beside it, and we can go again and we can copy the image over in the text. And that's a really good way of using artboards, just to trial things out. Now I'm going to show a little bit more about artboards on my YouTube channel, and I'll go more into in-depth to show you how you can use it for different projects. So we can use different images, we can use maybe something for social media. But I hope you enjoyed that tip, and say get into Photoshop, start using artboards and see how they can work for you. So I'll see you next time. Thanks, back to you, Glyn.
There we go. God, you don't have to multitask when you're doing this. Right, superb tip from Dave. I don't know what you guys think, but I learned a heck of a lot when Dave showed me that. He was round here on the weekend. He popped over to see us, and when he kind of explained the tip he was going to do, he recorded that at midnight, by the way. I was literally kind of there to coach him and see, about using all the kit that I've got in now, because you do have to use quite a bit. But as he's showing me, I completely forgot that, and I was just glued to the screen thinking, that would be so cool. I know he's going to do more on those artboards, because as he showed me, we realised afterwards that as you create more of those artboards over in the layers panel, it's like having a load of different background layers. So like Fran said in the actual comments there, you could actually then add different looks to each of those pictures and then decide which one you wanted to do. So I think there's definitely some scope here. Something that was originally just in there probably just for designers, I think there's a heck of a big scope there for some photographers as well. So huge thanks to my mate Dave. Dave is going to be back on this. We're going to try and organise it, Dave, aren't we? So that you're back on here once a month at least. But also Dave's going to be putting more and more stuff out on his own YouTube channel very shortly. Hint, hint. Right, okay, so let's just finish off James Norman. What aperture was this image at? James, right, this was shot at f2. On my blog, I think yesterday, I did a behind the scenes so you can actually see how this was actually photographed. But the tip I want to show you now is basically to do with something that when I was actually going through this retouch in Petersfield, by the way, huge thanks to my friend Vernon Nash who helped organise that, and John and the team from Petersfield Camera Club. They did an amazing job of organising the whole event, and it just ran so smoothly. So massive thanks for you. This is Femi, who was one of the guys that came along to watch the day-long seminar. And this picture, like I say, was a very shallow depth of field portrait shot with a grey background. And then I went through the retouching, and there was one area of the retouching that I was asked at one stage about, and I kind of skipped over it during the day. But when I got back home, I kind of thought, I wonder if there's a better way of doing it. And I want to show you what I mean by that. Now, if I zoom in, let me just lean forward a little bit on here. So this is the finished picture. If I just show you what the out of camera picture was, pretty much out of camera. This is where I've actually, I've worked on his eyes just a little bit to sharpen them all up. The colour correction thing with the camera profiles, and a little bit of overall sharpening as well. But the area that I want to work with on this one, if we zoom in just a little bit, you can see that Femi's got just a little bit of shine there on the end of his nose, and there's kind of like specular highlights, kind of shiny areas on his forehead and on his cheek here. Now this is because the room, with the amount of people in there, all the doors shut, and it was a beautiful sunny day outside, the room did get quite hot. So you'd expect somebody to have this kind of thing going on with the skin getting very warm. So I want to show you how you can get rid of the shine on the face and the forehead and the nose, but also maintain the exact same skin texture. Lots of ways you could possibly do this, frequency separation being one of them, but this is a different way, and I actually think this is a lot quicker and easier. So let me just show you that. Now we're going to use a blank layer first of all. So in my layer stack, I'm going to add a blank layer, and let's just keep things nice and tidy. And I'll call this one nose. I'll do the nose and the forehead and cheek on separate layers. Now I'm going to use the healing brush tool over in the toolbar. Now when we use tools, those of you who know, at the top of the bar, top of the screen in Photoshop, whatever tool you use, you get a unique options available to use for that particular tool. Now by default, when you choose the healing brush, it will say the mode here, the blending mode, will be set to normal. Now I want you to change that one. We're going to change it to darken. And because we're also doing this on a blank layer, there's one little thing you need to check as well. Where it says sample, if it says current and below, you need to change it. So make sure it says at least, if it says current layer, you need to change it. Change it to current and below or all layers. And the reason for that is if you don't have it set to current and below, when you try to use the healing brush tool, Photoshop is going to go, there is nothing here to work on. Because you have to take Photoshop by the hand sometimes and really lead it along. At the moment, there's just blank, there's nothing in there. There's no pixels or anything. So by changing it to current and below, you're telling Photoshop, look further down that layer stack and find pixels. Those are what I want you to work on. So now that we've done that, then what we're going to do to use the healing brush tool, we hold down the Alt key on PC or Option key on Mac, click on a good, clean, unaffected area of skin, and then just brush over the area that you want to work on. Now, because we changed the blend mode to darken, what that means is when we use the healing brush tool, it is only going to affect the areas of the skin that are brighter than what we used as the sample. And the reason that's a good thing to do is because when we go over that shiny area, it's not going to try to affect any other parts of the skin that don't need to be touched. It's only going to look at the areas that are brighter than where you sampled. Now at the moment we can see we've completely removed it. Now that doesn't look a little bit realistic. It looks like he's got maybe a little bit too much powder foundation on. So to make it look realistic, we'll knock down the opacity of that somewhere around about the 40 or 50%. That's 50, let's go for 40. So when I turn that layer on and off now, you can see that we can see a little bit of the shine there, but it's actually really knocked it back a bit now. It's acceptable. Your eyes aren't drawn to it. So now we want to work on the forehead and the cheek. So again, I'm going to add a blank layer, and I'll just rename this one. Let's just rename it Shine. Good old title for a Take That song there. And then we're going to go back to the healing brush tool. We're going to use it set to darken, and I'm going to do the same thing here now. So here we've got the shiny area on the forehead. I'm going to just hold down the Alt key on my PC, Option key on Mac, sample a good area of unaffected skin, and I'm just going to keep lifting up and pressing down to remove the shine. Now all seems kind of okay. It's doing an okay-ish kind of a job. We'll do that there, and we'll also get rid of it on the cheek just here as well. Now yes, the actual shine has been removed. However, when we zoom in, you'll see that it's kind of gone all smudgy. Doesn't look that good, and the texture has definitely gone. So maybe one thing we could do here in this case is, like before when we did the shine on the nose there, is maybe reduce the opacity of this layer. So let's knock it down to maybe, I don't know, 60%, something like that. And that looks pretty good. Certainly from this kind of distance, we can turn it on and off. That specular highlight there, that shine has really been reduced. However, when we zoom in, you'll notice if we look at the skin on this side, look at the texture there, look at the skin on here, it's definitely kind of flattened it out. The contrast has gone. It really has smoothed out that texture. So we need to kind of bring that back. So this now is how I'm starting to do that. And I just found this out after Petersfield. So let's just double click on the hand tool to take us back to full view. Now what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to click on the background layer, and I'm going to hold down my Control or Command key and press J to create a duplicate. And I'm going to rename that one to Skin Texture. Now then I'm going to drag that to the top of the layer stack. A couple of ways you could do that actually. If you didn't want to drag it, what you could also do is just hold down your Control key, and then you'll use your right square bracket key, and you can go up, left square bracket key goes down. So you can be really kind of accurate where you actually drop that layer. So now what we're going to do is this. We're going to use a filter to bring the texture back. So when we use filters to give us a flexibility, because we might not know the exact amount we need to dial in with that filter, what we're going to do is go Filter, Convert for Smart Filters. It might take a few seconds while Photoshop processes that and actually converts that layer into a smart object. And you can see now over in the right hand corner on the layers panel, we've got that little icon on the bottom there. It's telling us it's now a smart object. Then we're going to go to Filter, Other, and High Pass. Okay, so when we do the high pass, it gets covered by this grey kind of thing. And if I just zoom in, you can just about start to see some of the detail coming through. Now the detail that's coming through at the moment is the detail on Femi's face that is the most sharpest and has the most contrast, with a really low setting, as you can see maybe on the high pass filter here. I've only got 4 pixel radius in there. It's starting to just show that detail in there. You can see it on his beard as well. Now you could also take it down to 1 pixel radius, but now even though I'm zooming in, it's very, very hard to see that texture. So I'm going to leave that one at 4, and then we'll click OK. Right, so here we go. Let's just zoom out again now. Let's just close that up just there. Double click on the hand tool. So now we've got this grey. We can just about see this texture. The way we bring this back is now using a blend mode. I always talk about there being 3 things in Photoshop that if you're aware of, really the sky's the limit. If you just know about brushes, layer masks and blend modes, and we're not talking like a real deep knowledge here, just an understanding of them, there is nothing you can't do. So now I'm going to change the blend mode of this one here from normal to overlay. You could try soft light, you could try hard light, but I think with this one, overlay seems to work better. So now we've actually done that. If I just zoom, whoops, let's get rid of that. If I just zoom in, what we've done is we've now added the texture onto the face, but the texture at the moment is all over the face. We got all the texture from that background layer and we've added it to the face. We only need it to be on the areas where we did the healing. So there's a couple of ways you could do this. The first way is by adding a layer mask. Whoops, let's just go back a second. Step back. You could add a black layer mask. Now the way to do that, hold down your Alt key or your Option key, then click on the layer mask icon to create a black layer mask. That now hides the actual texture from the skin. Then you're going to get a brush, a normal soft edged round brush at 100% opacity, come in and then paint in the texture just there. And that works great, but the only problem with that is you've got to be really accurate not to go too far over the edges there, because then if you do, you're going to start to add more texture to areas that already had texture. So I don't do that. This is what I do. Let's just drag that down to the trash like so. Now, what I'm going to use is something called a clipping mask, and a clipping mask basically means that whatever is on the top layer will only be visible on the visible parts of the layer directly beneath it. Now what do we have on the layer directly below the texture? Well, all we have are the areas where we did the healing. So all I'm going to do then is put my cursor in between the skin texture layer and the shine layer and hold down the Alt or Option key, depending on whether you're working on PC or Mac. And you'll see that it changes to a little square with a down facing arrow. So now when I click on that, look what happens. That skin texture layer moves over to the right hand side with a little arrow telling us that the texture is now only visible on the visible parts of that layer below. So now look, when we zoom in, if you just look on Femi's forehead just here especially, turn that before and after. It's really, really subtle. But the great thing is, if you don't think you can see enough of that texture, we used a smart object. So that basically means we can open up here. Here we've got the high pass filter. We can double click on that to bring back the dialogue with the exact settings we used. And if you wanted to, you could really increase them way, way up just to see now if you can actually dial it in. Now that you can see them side by side, we really start to match them in so it actually just works perfectly. So it gives you a lot of flexibility there. So that is that. That's the one I was kind of raving about. I know that I tried to show this to Vernon and Brian and Femi and all the guys that came along to Petersfield, but I didn't actually kind of know this one until I got back. So that's just one there. I really hope that's useful. But let me just actually pretty much we're finishing off here. James Norman, mind blown. Thank you, mate. Hulb van Dongeren. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Glad you like that. I will go through the questions, any comments on there in a moment, but let me just finish off this section with this one here. Got all these set as presets. Here we go. So again, loads of you have turned up. It's brilliant to see the numbers here, but just make sure that if you haven't already, click on the subscribe button. That's kind of like saying that you're following this channel. It's one of your favorites. And also, if you go to my website, make sure you join the email group. Because there's a lot of stuff coming out on that one soon where I'm going to let you know about some brand new tutorials. There's the one that I'm filming next week when I'm over at Frank Dorhoff's studio on the 23rd, 24th and 25th when he's helping me to record a Vanity Fair style photo shoot. That's going to be taken through the whole concept, how we come up with the idea, the lighting, the posing, the post-processing, the whole thing. So it's going to be a Vanity Fair style photo shoot. But I'll keep all the details on that going out to the email group. And of course, if you're a member of it, there'll also be a discount when that's released as well. So, right then, let's have a very quick look in some of the things. This is mega. Cheers, Vernon. I think as Dave was doing his thing, I answered a few of the questions, but I don't want to keep you guys here waiting for ages. Johan, I'll have a look to see if there's somebody mentioned about the Creative Cloud that there could be a way using Finder that you can drop stuff into there, then it'll upload directly. So I'm definitely going to check up on that. If I find out about it, I'll certainly post it on my blog, but also I'll maybe just have a quick update on one of these videos. Guys, thank you so much for coming along. I'm not too sure yet if there'll be a YouTube live this time next week. I'm going to try and keep them to every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, obviously because I'm going out to Frank's, but either way I will keep you posted. But from me, a huge thanks. If you've got any comments, I'll be around in the chat room for a bit longer. Otherwise, leave them on the video once it's uploaded and I'll definitely get back to you. Guys, thanks very much for spending your evening with me. Have a good one and I'll see you again soon. Hi, I'm Glyn Dewis and I want to let you know about my brand new book, Photograph Like a Thief. Now, I truly believe that your own unique style starts with copying because you have to have a starting point. But when I say copying, I mean looking at the work of other great photographers, their lighting, composition, posing, how they retouch their images, learning from it and going on to create something completely new. Now, I've packed a lot into this book. There's a whole chapter dedicated to reverse engineering, equipment, my favourite retouching techniques, and 10 chapters taking you from coming up with an idea, the lighting, the setup, the photo shoot, and the complete retouching steps from start to finish. So check out Photograph Like a Thief, available now where all good books are sold.